So what I'm going to try to do this morning is I'm viewing our speech as a symptom, not the problem. But I'd like to take the symptom of our speech and try to dig a little deeper to get at the problem that's underlying our speech. Now, I'm finding this difficult to communicate. So if you don't get it, it's not your fault. I'm just not doing very well. And I was talking about the symptom. In our society, we treat the symptoms. We don't often get to the problem. I often use this example. When you go to the doctor with a headache, the doctor will probably give you something for the headache. But they don't have the time to sit with you and say, what's the cause of the headache? What's the problem? We treat the symptoms. So, speech, as I mentioned at the beginning, think about everything you said the last week, everything that came out of your mouth. If somebody could hear it all, would they conclude that you'd be here this morning? That's the challenge. Because out of our speech comes our self-centeredness, for instance, our own greed, our ambition. And so often when we lose it, when we go ballistic, we say, oh, I'm not myself. But when we lose it, when we go ballistic, and all of the inner comes out, that's what we really are. When everything's going fine, we can put on a nice front. But we're frustrated, that's where we're challenged. The first reading from Sirach says that. The test of a just person is in their tribulation. It's how we handle the tribulations in life that we are tested. That's what our speech portrays. Now, where does that come from? It comes from our heart. The gospel. It's out of the abundance of the heart that the mouth speaks. Once again, it's out of the abundance of our heart that our mouth speaks. So if nasty things come out of your mouth, it's coming from your heart. And most of us speak how we think life has treated us. If you think life has been mean to you or life has not treated you well, that somehow through the circumstances of life you feel shafted, that's what we will speak. That's what we're struggling with. Sue Switalski, our pastoral associate, in the bulletin article this week, be sure to read it. She talks about out of the heart comes frustration, anger, regret, disappointment, jealousy, just to name a few. That's what we're dealing with. Now, can we change our hearts? Of course we can. But we start not with ourselves, but we start with God. That's, I think, our biggest problem, is that it's hard for many of us to believe that God really loves us. So many people think God is up there, out there, watching us, waiting for us to do something wrong or trying to test us with problems and so on of life. God's only posture to us is out of love. I was on retreat recently and I read an article, and the man will use the example of babies. Those of your parents know a lot better about this than I do. But when you have a baby, don't you sometimes just watch your baby because you love them so much? Like when they're sleeping, you just stare at them just because you love them so much. Could that possibly be God's posture to us? God is watching us all the time, but not waiting for us to do something wrong so he can get us and punish us. But God is watching us all the time because God so loves us. God so loves us that he can't take his eyes off of us. We're God's babies. We call God Father, parent. So if we can accept that love, perhaps it'll soften our hearts. And once our hearts are softened to realize all of God's gifts, that will change our speech. So again, if speech is a problem for you, work on that, of course. But also go deeper. Work at changing our hearts. Now, it's what comes out of our hearts that we judge others. That's the other part of the gospel. How can you say to your brother, sister, oh, let me see the speck, when we have a log in our own eyes? The way that we view life is the way we judge others. And Jesus said, don't do that. We can judge others' actions, but we never know their motives. Leave that to God. And when we judge others, that's what Jesus says, you are a hypocrite. And that's why on this first week of this 6-week message series, Developing Holy Ground, that's us preparing for Easter, we're working on hypocrisy. That's the key, and you know that already from the bulletin. So we're going to work on hypocrisy. Now, in the Greek dramas, the actors and actresses wore masks to portray a certain person. But we all wear masks. No one of us is what we pretend to be. We don't know each other's thoughts and secret actions. You don't know my inner thoughts or secret actions. I don't know your inner thoughts and secret actions. I don't want to know them. But that's what we're dealing with, is to take away that false image of what we like to pretend we are, to truly become authentic disciples of Jesus. Not to judge others, but to judge ourselves only through God's eyes, God's love and God's goodness. Now, to symbolize that today, we're going to start our 6-week message series, as I mentioned. I'd like to invite all of you now to come forward as you do at communion and take a stone from the containers and put it here in our rock garden. And as you do it, think about what in your life where you are a hypocrite, because we all are, and what you're going to change, because we are here today preparing holy ground. Would you do that? Just come forward. Don't be shy. Come forward, pick up a stone, put it in the rock garden. Think about how we're going to change our lives.